Hi folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria. Now, yesterday I put up a video looking at my favourite things of 2021, favourite weapon acquisitions, and I have to issue an apology straight up because I suffered what is commonly known as a brain fart. I actually named the wrong manufacturer for this Okatana that I showed. Now, everything I said about this Okatana is true. I'm really impressed with it. I really like it. It's not to say it's perfect. It's not to say that there isn't constructive criticism to say about it. But the actual manufacturer, and I don't know why my brain, the wrong name came out of my mouth, but the actual manufacturer of this is Jkoo or Sinosword, okay, which are the same company as far as I'm aware. And they went to great efforts actually to fulfill my requests. Although I did throw the exact choices, for example, the colour of the Ito or wrap, and the exact design of the Tsuba and things like that, I threw that out to them. I only requested that the blade, which is has a nagasa of around 33 inches, so it's quite a lot longer than a typical katana and is really into the realms of a earlier tachi, or indeed what we would call an okatana. And that was the only real specification I made. Now, I should throw full credit to Jkoo. Also, I should say, that they were very exacting, and there's also a Wakizashi here as well. They were very exacting in what they wanted to send me, okay? And that means that they took a fair amount of time. They weren't incredibly quick, but the main delay for this getting to me was actually to do with UK customs, or what we call border force, because we have some rather bizarre, nonsensical and ridiculous rules in the UK as regarding curved swords. So I had to jump through all the hoops to get through border force, but they came through in the end. They just took a fair amount of time because there were backlogs at border force, and as I understand it, there's a huge amount of backlog at border force, and in fact they've had to employ more people because of the rules that have been imposed upon them by our celebrated Home Office, who are a branch of the civil service. Anyway, enough about that, and I won't get into the politics of it. But these are really, really nicely made, and as you know, they are, they're Chinese-made swords. They're Chinese-made daisho by Jkoo, Sinosword, link below, and a lot of the Chinese manufacturers of Japanese-style swords. I won't name the other companies in this particular video, but you know them. A lot of them share parts, and a lot of them share factories. And so in some cases you'll find the same, the same Fuchi and Kashira, you'll find the same Tsuba, you'll find even the same saya in some cases from different manufacturers. However, all of these manufacturers, is my experience so far anyway, will make custom pieces if you ask them to. Obviously you pay proportionately more, but if you want a particular blade length or blade proportions, or you want more distal taper, whatever, or more curvature, then you can get these things. And often, if you know what you're doing with a bit of research, you can get a Chinese-made Japanese-style sword that is better than the average by being particular about what you ask for. Now, one thing I would mention is that one of the things which is common on a lot of antique Japanese swords is for there to be curvature in the suka or hilt. Okay, so in other words, there's some curvature in the tang or nakago, and there is corresponding curvature in the hilt. And this is not something you find from many Chinese manufacturers so far, and it's something I'd like to see more of, particularly when we're looking at tachi. But even when we're looking at katana like this, most of the Chinese manufacturers go for quite a straight grip, and this does have that. It's not to say we don't find antique Japanese swords with a straight grip, or tsuko you do, but it would be nice to see some more representative, I suppose, replicas of the antique examples, like some of the ones I've got behind me, of Japanese swords. That being said, the main purpose I'm putting this video up is really just to apologise for saying the wrong manufacturer. I know that I have previously reviewed Swords of North swords, and they're very good, I think, for the money. and I mentioned Ryan Sword. Now technically I don't actually have any swords from Ryan Sword, but Ryan Sword and Swords of Northshire do work together in some regards, and I do have swords coming to me from Swords of Northshire that are still with Border Force at the moment, Christmas delays I think. So and they have had input on them from Ryan Sword, which is probably why that manufacturer came to mind. But anyway, these are from Jkoo or Sinosword, linked below. And as mentioned, a full review will be coming through. But I'm very, very pleased with the quality of these, particularly. Well, in fact, there's a few things that particularly came through. So first of all, I really love the fact that they made a blade which is longer than standard, and it has a good amount of distal taper. It handles really, really nicely, and it's got very good, nice edge geometry. You know, there's no, as you would expect with a Japanese sword, there's no secondary bevel or anything like that. The habaki is very well and tightly fitted there. Although it is a fairly generic brass habaki, it just fits the blade very, very well. And I suspect that most Chinese manufacturers of Japanese style swords are making the blades of a standard thickness and width at the base of the blades so that they can use the generic habaki with them. Nothing really interesting to say about the seppa. The Tsuba is made of steel. One thing I would mention is it's very nice and it's got an old look to it, but where it's rubbed actually in the packaging, it has gone bright. So it's gone to bright steel finish where it's rubbed in transit from China to the UK. So they are steel and then they're artificially aged, but nevertheless, you know, for a sword in this price category, it's got an old look to it. The Fuchi Kashira, so the fittings on the Suka, again, they've got the same finish, which gives a kind of nice aged look, and it feels like old iron. Actually, it feels like iron that's been allowed to get rusty and then the rust's been cleaned off. It's got that oxidized finish to it, almost certainly you know, deliberately oxidized, but it gives the look of an old fitting, and it's not glitzy, it's not new looking, and I really, really like it. It's subtle, understated, and it looks a little bit like old fittings, and they're quite nice castings. They're quite detailed. But one of the things that really struck me about the Jkoo swords that have been sent to me here is the Ito wrap. Okay, so first of all, it's got a nice texture to it. It's not particularly shiny or anything like that, but it's incredibly tight wrap. I can't even remotely move any of the Ito here. It's really, really solid, and so really that's a real high point, and it's not something I expected for swords from this particular manufacturer. Jkoo, Sinosword are known as relatively kind of budget priced Chinese makers of Japanese style swords, so this wrap far exceeded what I expected. And the other thing that has to be mentioned are on the saya of both the Wakizashi, and they both match incidentally, they are daisho, the horn fittings on the saya at top and bottom, and I can't remember what this is called, the name slipped out of my brain, but they are all genuine horn, and it's got a real quality feel to it. So they've done, I think, a fantastic job, and I would not hesitate at all if you're looking for, you know, relatively affordable and budget Japanese style sword to go custom to Jkoo, because I think that they can probably pull it out of the bag based on what I've seen here. Perhaps the only one thing that I would sort of say off the bat that I'm not a huge fan of is the use of the two Makugi pins. I would prefer to see one, as is usually traditional on the antiques anyway. But you know, that's not a huge thing, and I guess you could cover the lower one up so that it wouldn't be seen. And I know that mechanically having two does make it stronger, but just like the antique ones usually make do with one, and I would prefer that, because at the end of the day, it is a replica of an antique style sword. Anyway, so there we go. Set the record straight. It's Jkoo, link below. I've been initially very impressed. We'll look at a fuller review with these swords further down the line, but check out that link now. And thanks a lot for watching, and Happy New Year as well. See you soon, folks. Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers, folks.